411 Live.
Where you can learn about issues that impact us every day. State of world, 411 Live.
Real people, real talk.
Made to help people in our community in every way. For your girl, 411 Live.
Turning pain to purpose. That's what I would say about two young men who spent a significant amount of time behind bars, and one spending 2 decades, one spending almost 2 decades. But when they emerged with a second chance and also a purpose. Their lives are really affecting Milwaukee right now, which I am really excited about. Hello, everyone. I'm Beverly Taylor. This is the 411 Live. I am talking about Adam Procell. He is the newly appointed director of the Office of Community Wellness and Safety. And I'm also talking about Shannon Ross, who is the co-founder of the community. And together, they are co-founders of the Paradigm Shift. Now, we have a lot to talk about with the two of them. But first of all, I want to welcome both of you, but I should say welcome back to both of you because you've both been on the podcast before. Let's start with the fact that both of you have served years behind bars because of violent crimes that you did as young men, but you came away with a purpose. So recidivism rate, very high. But you guys somehow figured out, I've done this, I want to change my life, but I want to be a bridge for others. Where did that come from?
So if I kind of go from my side of it, and we've talked about this before, me and Adam, and even answered this question about the different paths that we both took to kind of a similar landing post-release. For me, a lot of it was I didn't have a upbringing or a childhood that was very traumatic. A lot of folks in prison, you could call prison overwhelmingly a place that captures cages and kind of dehumanizes people that have mental health issues and have a lot of ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. And so for me, it was realizing through my incarceration that I didn't have a lot of the same things that so many around me had that were holding them in a place of just daily survival. And so I was able to start tapping into and saying, okay, I don't have that same restriction. There's something else that I am obligated to do. And so it was leaning into that recognition that blessings that I had in my life to be able to have a little more flexibility and, ability to carry things that other people don't necessarily. And kind of encountering that recognition with a lot more spiritual and historical understanding and education around like where we've been as a society, as human beings, and what is possible and around suffering, and how a lot of Buddhist principles were a big part of my early awakening inside to see a different path forward. And so that was kind of the early level, and then just over time it was more and more stumbling and thinking I'd figured it out and realizing I was still an idiot, and then thinking I'd figured it out and realizing I was still an idiot, and then to this moment, understanding, knowing for sure I'm an idiot, but at least I figured some things out enough that I think I'm, more valuable to people in society than I am, useless. And so I hope to continue just growing in that path, and that was how kind of my journey from figuring things out to now being where I am.
Yeah. And we've talked about it. I mean, in the other podcast, we talked about kind of that transformation for you. But in a nutshell, where did that come from?
In a nutshell, I would agree with Shannon that he's an idiot. And it's sort of this, I have to remove myself from where I am at currently and going back to probably a 19, 20-year-old in prison. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I started planning for my release when I didn't think that there was going to be a release.
Really?
And I think that's sort of what connected Shannon and I, and that's the reentry process has to start so early on in the carceral process, prison, whatever you want to define it as. And I think that's a big problem why so many individuals are struggling, because there's this mechanism that triggers 6 months prior to release. And I think we've all sort of latched on to reentry should start the second you walk in, which may sound ludicrous for somebody who's about to serve 50 years in prison. And I don't want to say immediately when I was 19 decided to do right, that's when my reentry process began. But as I look back, that's when it did begin. And I think that was the catalyst to some of the work that Shannon and I are doing today.
That's great. You know, long time ago, it's been about 5 years, I guess, I was part of a program, Challenges and Possibilities, I think it was. And we went to the Green Bay Correctional Institution, and talked to inmates. And, of course, I'm in the conflict resolution area, and that was my area of with talking with the inmates. And then there was, different parts of it, financial, family, religion. I mean, there were different aspects, restorative justice. But one thing that stood out to me is we were in a circle. There were about 30 inmates who had committed various crimes, but they were very in tune. They were like sponges. They talked, we interacted, the whole bit. And, and I'm thinking to myself, this program makes sense because most of the people here are going to get out sometime. And you want them to be prepared, not unprepared, to get, become productive citizens. So when you talk about that reentry process starting, very early, it makes total sense. But that's not what's really happening a lot, is it?
Not by design. I think they're working pretty heavily to try to shift that. I know we are. Shannon can speak more to some of his pre-entry work that has given him the access point of very early on to start engaging with the reentry process. And actually, I think that is a good segue for you to talk about that.
Yeah, the system isn't really designed to most effectively rehabilitate people inside. It's not the resources it's given. That's not the heart of why the system exists. It exists to keep people that have committed, crimes and have present some danger to society, out of society. And then what then happens inside, hopefully, is rehabilitative, but it's not necessarily always the case. And so you come into this clash of purpose and capacity, in which is people inside need to be rehabilitated, but the system is, by its design, not specifically for that. And so how do we have ways where the system can do more to that end with the resources given, and how can they partner with entities to provide the support in areas where they maybe can't, right? And they recognize that a lot of times, and that's why they bring in people to come talk inside, and partnerships with people that have reentry support in their organizations in different counties. So it's kind of that partnership between like what they want to do, what they know they can't do, and what other people are better at potentially. And the work that we do at the community is one side of our house. We have narrative work, which is very outside society focused, addressing the way people view those that have a record, right? If a lot of the policies and the way that we invest in the system and the way that we address people when they commit a crime is based on the narrative about people that have committed a crime, that have been arrested, that have a record. All of those things, they create a sense of fear and danger in a person's mind. The second you hear that someone has a record or has been arrested, you think like, what did they do? And this danger sense kicks in. Right. And that changes the entire way you deal with them, you look at them, you are vulnerable, you can trust them. And so we do a lot to address that specific narrative. But inside, we have various things that we do to help prepare folks that are inside as soon as they enter. So as Adam said, reentry doesn't start 6 months to the door, a year to the door, even 5. It starts the second you enter the system. And if we are able to start having that focus be the case for each individual or for the system in general, people will be much better prepared when they do come home, as 90 to 95% of them do. I mean, it's an insane number that we forget about a lot, right? You just think people are in prison, they were there, but they're coming back. Right? Who do you want this person to be? So you can't just forget about them when they go in, because you're then going to have to deal with that same neglect when they come back. And so we're trying to fill that gap a lot of times in providing humanizing interactions, support, guidance, inspiration, and just general actual skills in various ways.
We're going to take a break. We're going to come back and talk about paradigm shift and all the things that you guys are doing with that. Stay with us. We'll be right back. You are listening to the 411 Live.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
I never got a college degree. Now I'm the CEO of my own company. People want to tell me I'm one in a million, when actually I'm one of millions.
Welcome back to the 411 Live. Adam Procell, who's director of the Office of Community Wellness and Safety, now he really knows what it's like to take over this position because he had to leave. And Shannon Ross is still with me. So we're going to continue our conversation. And one of the things, the two of you are co-founders of the Paradigm Shift.
Yes.
And I want to know what is entailed in that. What do you do?
Yeah, it's a great question that we still don't have a great answer to because there's no specific thing that we are focused on. The tagline we use is multidimensional justice solutions. I think that's a great description of it, but like, what does that mean? And what we find ourselves doing mostly is being asked to support or help in areas, and then we just talk about if we think we can, or if we have an idea, and if we think that it's something that would be applicable or appropriate for Paradigm Shift to do. And what that has so far meant is anything from youth prevention programming, including mentorship and retreats, to an ambulance we acquired from the fire department to create a mobile reentry unit that we're outfitting right now, to the deck of cards that Adam largely spearheaded that is going into facilities, and it is in facilities across the state that has reentry resources on every card because people play cards all the time. That's one way for them to encounter the resources available. We have a website and an app that is a statewide resource directory for people coming home, for people also who have a loved one inside. We have peer support mentors under a contract where we employ formerly incarcerated people to be mentors for youth and other people with substance use histories. And then we travel, as is coming up Thursday, to different countries at times to see more about their systems and how we can bring that back here. So it can be just a variety of projects. We speak, we consult at times, that's just come up and we think we can be of use for. So it's hard to describe what it is because it's so flexible for the moment and the need. Yeah.
And some of the things, the mentorship, that's, to me, that's just important. I can, if I'm going through something, I really want to talk to somebody who's been there, more so than someone who hasn't, who may have they've read about it, but they don't have the experience. And to me, the experience means a lot. Is that what you find that people gravitate to?
Absolutely. There's a catch-22 there because you can't really get a good sense of where to go or what's possible if you don't have somebody who's kind of made that journey already. But there's also a lot of folks that are maybe had the lived experience, but they don't have the ability to frame that and to pass it on in a productive, constructive way. So you have to make sure that you have people who are involved that have lived experience, but also make sure that people who have lived experience that are involved have what they need to be of use to this other person.
Right.
So yeah, it's very valuable. It's very needed. It's incredibly powerful when the person is ready and able to provide that experience.
You were mentioning earlier about correcting the narrative. You know, how people see someone who is formerly incarcerated. You know, the label that we put on that person instead of just looking at the person that's in front of you, you know, looking at the character and those things. How do you correct the narrative?
So a lot of what we think, and I say this sometimes and whenever I speak at our events in the beginning, and I'll say we have this belief as human beings that we live based on facts, truth, and reality. And these they're cute sayings and cute thoughts, but they're not true. We live our lives based on stories. We live our lives based on the stories we've been told our entire lives that we continue to believe, and we live our lives based on the stories we tell ourselves about other people and ourselves every day. And until you tell yourself a different story, you're going to be living according to the story you've told yourself. It seems very obvious, but the nuance there is that stories aren't necessarily true or reality or facts.
Right.
They're based on things that you believe. And so if you believe an empowering narrative, if you believe a story that you can do, that other people can do, you will engage with people in your own life differently than if you feel that you can't. If you feel that people will not give you a chance, if you feel like people are incompetent, you're going to deal with them differently. It changes the whole trajectory of how you operate and you face life. And so if it comes to the narrative around people with a record, so much of that is negative, fear-based, danger, curiosity about what the person did. And it doesn't really bode well for giving a person a chance to, one, come back from something they may have done, or from seeing them in a way that taps into and allows them to tap into their potential for society, right? We want people to be their best selves so that society can be its best self. But we also want to do things unconsciously that kind of sabotage the other person's ability to be their best self. And so when it comes to the narrative around people with a record, so much of it is just highlighting all these people that have a record that are not the usual traditional narrative. People who are high level in their profession, people who are very successful, people who are very emotionally regulated and calm and peaceful, right? So the more we can highlight those examples, it helps correct that narrative that people that have a record are just dangerous, fear requiring and negative stereotypes.
Right. Paradigm shift. You guys did these dinners where you had different people come in. Did you have formerly incarcerated people come, as well as the police chief and
Yeah, we've had a wide variety of folks from, as you said, the police chief, the mayor, the fire chief, philanthropic foundation leaders, higher education leaders, the DOC. We've had all those kind of folks, but we purposely try to pair them with other people they may not know or may not have encountered. One of our first, dinners was a community activist engaging with the fire chief, and they came up with an idea on how they could better collectively respond to certain things in neighborhoods where the community activists' organization could help, kind of bridge the gap between when they're able to arrive sometimes. And so we've also had many formerly incarcerated people there. We had one dinner that was crime survivors and formerly incarcerated people together having dinner. We've had some that were all formerly incarcerated people. We had credible messengers. It was a whole dinner of only formerly incarcerated people, and we had kind of cook-off of prison food we used to make inside, hookups and so forth, who made the best hookup. So, yeah, we've just done a variety of different things and different people to come together for those dinners.
It helps with that narrative and that mindset. But I also understood that you guys did a role play, with a police officer and somebody.
I think you mean the simulations?
Maybe that's it.
So that was the community. We did 3 of those so far this year. We have 3 more for our annual celebration in November. But yeah, I think it was where, and I say think because I'm trying to make sure it's maybe what you're talking about. But we have tables and we have characters that represent what it's like for a person coming home from prison. And it's supposed to simulate the first 4 weeks post-release. And then we have different people and different tables. You have to go get a job. You have to go to school. You have to check in with your agent. And as people see how difficult it kind of is structured to even make it through. So that's the purpose of it, is to show like what we're actually asking people to do when they come home, and what's the likelihood that we would even expect people to make that through successfully on a large percentage.
Now, do you do that within the prison system or on the outside?
We have not done them inside, but they are done inside. Like the first time I encountered it was before I was released. So I do know that they do them inside, just we haven't done that yet.
And speaking of the community, which you founded, what else is going on? Because we talked about it 4 years ago, a lot has changed, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's been a lot of growth. Very much grateful. We have a team of about 8 to 10. I say 8 to 10 because a couple folks are kind of part-time contracted roles, but we have 5 full-time, 2 part-time folks, and we are doing just more programs and projects in the last 4 years. Our narrative work has really expanded to have more than just videos that we were doing, and we had a podcast for a while that we might bring back. But we're doing events around storytelling dinners where people, professional chefs, for example, it's called Cell to Table, kind of like Farm to Table. And Caitlin Cullen is one of the chefs, and Janelle Cabreza is another one. And they're making prison-themed food with other formerly incarcerated folks to design the meals. And then we provide the food in 4 courses. And then we have a story on stage to talk about how food is this door to understand the system and why it's so relevant right now to people outside. We have the simulations, as you said. We have our annual celebration coming up at the end of the year. So just different experiences for people to engage with this topic in a way that challenges them to see it differently than maybe they've always just naturally understood it.
Does that help? You have people, you talk about changing the narrative, so people on the outside, when they're looking at folks who have a record, but does it also change the people who are the formerly incarcerated,
Yeah.
Because sometimes they don't think a whole lot about themselves.
No, and so that's what we learned very early on. When we first started it, it was designed to be for more wider, wealthier, conservative audiences, right? Like to kind of push the margins of those groups to kind of shift more understanding and empathy and willingness to engage differently as they vote and as they support and as they rent to and so forth, employ. And what we discovered very early on is that the larger audience actually is people who have a record. Personally, I believe that we can do more as individuals in our own lives by changing the way we approach things and the way we push forward than obstacles being removed from out of our way. Because no matter how many obstacles are in your way, if you're still an obstacle to yourself, none of that's going to matter.
Right.
But if there are a number of obstacles in your way and you remove the obstacle that you present to yourself, you actually can overcome a lot of things in life. And so if there's 2 things there, both very important, we want to really make sure we're emphasizing a little bit more the individual's ability to, by empowering themselves, change the course of their ability to succeed in life. And so those narratives are not only believed by society, they're believed by us. We believe we can only have certain jobs. We believe we can't get a degree. We believe that we're only destined for certain, levels of society and success and achievements. And so by amplifying and showing so many people that are doing that, giving examples and inspiration to those that are going through the system of what's possible, we are empowering them and expanding their ability to be of value to themselves, their communities, and society overall. So I 100% agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, that personal responsibility, balancing personal responsibility and systemic challenges, I guess. What if somebody wants, they're listening to you and they're going, man, he sounds good. I like this community thing. How do they get more information? Because you have a newsletter, right?
Yeah. We have the most widely read publication in the Wisconsin prison system, and we have a physical one that goes to folks outside. It's a different version of it. One's called The Community. The other one's called Community Ties. It can get very confusing. But we have our website, which I will probably in 2 days here be launched. The upgraded one. The current one looks good as well. But the-community.org is the website, and you can find really everything we do on there. And we're happy to connect with people, as I do all the time, and my team does, about finding out ways that they can either know exactly what we have coming up, how they can get involved, or as I'm always really critical to say, it's not about getting involved with us. It's about finding a spot that a person can really connect with, because maybe your time, talent, and treasures aren't with the work we're doing specifically. Maybe one of our partners is a better fit, and that benefits ultimately the whole ecosystem we're a part of.
Yeah, yeah. So you're still connected. You're still talking to people who are incarcerated, who are thinking about reentry. You know, have that frame of mind. What are some of those difficult questions that come up?
The ones we get the most are about, are there jobs available? Is there housing available? And then ones that sometimes come in different forms is, how do you deal with all the things that you will carry as a person that has a record, right? And so that goes to the storytelling. That goes to, if you come up with a way to tell your story to yourself and others, that will ease so much of that. So those are the questions we tend to encounter the most. And the housing and the job ones, I like to say to people, if someone tells me they can't get a job and they're formerly incarcerated, my first instinct is you're being either too picky or you don't really want a job. Because I've had people that'll say, I can't get a job. And I'll say, okay, well, I have this hospitality business. I have this restaurant, right, that right now I would hire. They're like, oh, I don't want a restaurant. I said, so you don't want a job. Like, that's not how this works. Like, you have to start getting into something, and then you work your way to the thing that would be best for you, right? That's how everybody does it in life. And so, well, not everybody. Some folks have, very much easier path, but that's a different conversation. And so ultimately, we just like to say that there are tons of people that will hire. There are tons of jobs available. I have so many folks that I know that are formerly incarcerated with very good jobs, decent jobs, or a job at least. And so that's the thing that I just want people to know. Housing is always more difficult. That's a genuine concern. Landlords can legally discriminate against a person because they have a record, and that makes it more difficult. If you have 10 candidates and 2 of them have a record, you're going to go to 8 candidates, because if you have a choice and you don't know this person's background, if they have money, you want to avoid the liability, it's an easy removal from the candidacy you're looking at. And so that happens a lot, and we're always trying to expand more options for housing. But those are the 3 things I think that we encounter the most. The one that we don't encounter really ever that is very powerful is the importance of relationships. So many folks come out and they will return back to prison, or they will even engage in overdoses or drug addiction or some, even death that I've seen because their relationship with their partner that they had inside, or they got into a relationship too quickly and they weren't ready, right? And it becomes a bad thing for one or the other or both. And so we always talk about the need to really understand romantic relationships in the reentry process are also a very huge need, and be very cautious of how you engage that too quickly because you got to be successful and have your balance as a free person before you can be of any use to another person in a relationship.
That's good. Take care. You got to take care of you. Baby steps, in other words. All right. Shannon, thank you very much for joining us for podcast number 2.
Podcast number 2.
Yeah. And, we'll have you back for podcast number 3.
I'm sure.
Shannon Ross joining us, who is the founder of the community and co-founder of Paradigm Shift. And, of course, we started off with Adam Procell, who is now the acting director of Milwaukee's Office of Community Wellness and Safety, who had to shot off before the podcast is over because of his position. But we thank you both for being here. So thank you.
I like to look at him as my opening act.
Yeah, exactly. The opening act. I like that. And thank you for joining us for another episode. We are a nonprofit organization. Go to our website, the411live.org, if you'd like to partner with us. But until next time, I'm Beverly Taylor. This is the 411 Live. Real people, real talk. If you would like to check out past episodes, there are many ways. Go to your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Like and watch us on Facebook. Watch and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have suggestions for future episodes, go to our website, the411live.org.